guest for you guys just in time for cocktail hour. Tatiana Chamorro is an award-winning brand architect, entrepreneur, and the chief marketing officer at Beverage Company, the innovative parent company behind Toucan Cocktails. Originally from Nicaragua, Tatiana has built a stellar reputation for translating complex business visions into highly impactful, market-dominating visual identities. Prior to breaking into the beverage space, she co-founded and successfully scaled a premier digital and creative marketing agency. Her profound impact on the Texas business landscape earned her a spot on D Magazine's prestigious Dallas 500 list, honoring her as one of the region's most influential business leaders. Today at Toucan Cocktails, she is disrupting the massive RTD alcohol market by leading the global branding, influencer architecture, and launch strategy for the world's first patent-pending Toucan dual-chamber packaging technology, physically separating premium spirits from fresh, real juice mixers until the moment of consumption. Tatiana, thanks so much for coming on and chatting with us a little bit. And my understanding is you've got a Toucan on your side of the camera, and you're going to show us a little bit about how it works and a little bit about the product innovation and how this technology is revolutionizing the RTD space. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the product and show us how it works.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Dylan. I'm excited to be here. Very, very excited to share about Toucan Cocktails. This is what the can looks like. It's called Toucan like the bird, but it's because it's two cans. So the top can is going to have your alcohol. It's going to be a double shot. In this case, I'm going to be making a Cosmo.
Let's
so
go.
It's going to be a double shot of French wheat vodka. Different to any other industry, it is a true double shot from a bottle, right? So like it comes from the spirit, which means that it's going to be 50% ABV. And the bottom can is going to be our mixer. So we separate the ingredients to keep them fresh and to allow for more premium ingredients. So the way it works is you separate it, you take off the lid from the bottom. You're going to make sure that you take it off completely.
Oh, nice. So it fully opens up. There you go.
Yeah. And we have this ring, which is now one of our patents. And that ring connects the top can with the bottom. The top can, you're going to do the same thing. You take off the lid completely, and you'll see that it's going to be a little bit, it's going to be clear, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to pour the top into the bottom. So that's where you're adding your alcohol into your mixer. You're going to add a little bit of ice. We always get the question if you have to add ice. And the answer to that is we definitely recommend when you go to a bar and you ask for a cocktail, they're going to shake it a little bit with ice, even if they don't pour it with ice, just because there's an additive that happens when you shake it with the ice. Once you have the ice, the top can and the bottom in there, you're going to snap it back. And then it turns into a shaker.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it doesn't leak. It's connected by this ring. You can throw it in the air and catch it.
Let's go.
It's really fun. And each one of these will make 2 cocktails. So you can drink it from the can or you can pour it into a glass.
Amazing. Yeah, I feel like the only thing you're mixing is that little, or missing is that little thing that keeps the ice from pouring out, right?
Oh, yeah. The strainer. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Future innovation.
Definitely.
That's awesome. Well, so I have a lot of questions about, kind of the product innovation. So, obviously RTD is an exploding space right now. You've got basically every spirit and every cocktail iteration under the sun being manufactured for RTD. It's definitely taking kind of the home consumption market by storm, and even inside of point of sale on premise. So what was the product insight that you saw that was lacking? Like, what happens when you mix alcohol and the mixer together and just put it on the shelf and ship it around the country? Why did you guys feel like it was important enough to do an entire kind of reimagining of the container and the packaging to allow for this, live mixing of the alcohol and the mixer?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're not alone in asking that. We get that question, probably the most popular on social media. The number one reason, one of my business partners is a chemist. And so he understands the chemistry behind mixing certain ingredients. And so when alcohol mixes with sugar, and it sits on a shelf, and think of the process in production until a product that's pre-mixed gets to the consumer, it's going to be at least 3 months, right? So when sugar and alcohol mixes and it sits there until it touches the hands of a consumer, there's a chemical reaction that begins to happen. And so really the idea behind what we're building came through why are cocktails that are delicious at a bar? And I don't know about you, I love cocktails, but when I have had previously mixed cocktails, they're just not it. Like they're great for where I need them. They solve the problem because I don't drink beer, I don't drink wine. And when I'm out in the beach or anything like that, they solve the problem because I'm not going to be carrying a big bottle and the mixers and everyone's going to want a different type of drink. But it wasn't the solution, right? And so the big reason why that happens is because of that chemical reaction that happens with the taste, which doesn't allow companies to use high percentage ABV on the drinks or high proof spirits, because that process will happen faster. And then also you have to use a lot of preservatives in the mixer, right? And so at the bottom of everything, it's science. If we separate the ingredients, it allows us to use real strong, real proof spirits for the top can. And then it allows us to use fresher mixers. It allows us to be a little bit more intentional with what we're using for the mixer in the bottom can.
Yeah, that's interesting. And what about the innovation around ice versus keeping the product refrigerated? Is that important to the user experience, or is that just kind of how you get the cool down effect?
So I wouldn't say that it's as important. It's not an innovation. It's more of, we like to make sure that that's part of the process, because that's part of the process of a bartender when you're in a bar, right? So when you go to a bar and you ask for a drink, adding ice to the drink, even if everything's been refrigerated or if the the glass that it's coming in is already cold, they add ice to the drink to shake it when they're mixing it, because it has an additive and it creates a chemical reaction as well. And so we recommend that to have the full experience of what the flavor profile should be. But it's more so because we're trying to craft real cocktails anywhere you go. And that's part of crafting a cocktail, adding some ice before shaking.
Yeah, I love that. And then as far as kind of categorization and distribution, I know there's certain liquor licenses that allow for, beer and wine, and then there are certain that allow for spirits to be poured or mixed drinks. And then you also kind of have the new shape of this particular vessel in which you're delivering the drink. Doesn't quite fit in the refrigerated section, but maybe it gets put out on the shelf. So how are you thinking about point of sale, both within like convenience and quick grab commissary, like in a hotel or something like that, versus what are you thinking about the first impression or the first time that the consumer meets the product on shelf space?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'll answer it. And quite honestly, we're a team of 5 founding team members, and all of us bring different experiences. And so one of my business partners comes from the alcohol distribution sales perspective, and one of the main founders who came up with the concept also comes from the alcohol distribution sales. So when we were building this product, that was taken into consideration. When the top can is connected to the bottom can, the size is the same size as a beer. And so it does fit in the cold.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so that's like basically that would fit in like where you would normally put like a tall boy or something like that.
Yeah, so the size is not a problem in distribution. I think the bigger challenge we had is it looks different. How do we allow consumers to understand the top can is sealed separate from the bottom, and you need to mix it, and there's a reason for it, and the reason is your drink is going to taste better, without being too overwhelmingly confusing or still having to compete within a very limited amount of shelf space because we're a new product. So that has been probably where our head started to turn wheels, because the solution of how do we fix this for distribution was done early on by my business partners, John and Steven.
Awesome. All right, so let's get into your background a little bit, and then maybe talk about how you came to this venture. So I gave a little bit of your bio, but can you contextualize it a little bit? I know you were originally from Nicaragua. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you study? And how did you get involved in the marketing and advertising world?
Yeah, so I'm, like you said, originally from Nicaragua. I grew up in Nicaragua. I was there up until I was 18. There were a few years where I lived in Spain with my family. But up until I was 18, I left to college in Pennsylvania. I had a year there, and then I finished college in Texas. So I went to East Texas A&M, and I was able to complete my undergrad in visual communications and my master's in marketing. So I think I come from an entrepreneurial family. I'm a fourth generation business owner. We have a legacy business that has been in the family for 100 years, and
Wow.
yeah, it's great. It's a different perspective on the business world, but it's also interesting because for us, my family's business is a newspaper, and so
Mm.
it's a little bit different because it's an industry that was very dominant in the 80s and the 90s, all the way out through maybe the start of the 2000s, and then it started declining with digital. And so it's been interesting to see that, obviously from a perspective now looking back versus growing up with it because I was too young, but it's been a part of my environment and my my observations and growing up within an entrepreneurial family. So I would say I grew up a little bit different than everyone else in that sense, growing up to board meetings, and my dad would take me to different things like that, which opened up my desire to follow into entrepreneurship. So by the time I graduated with my master's, um, my husband and I decided to stay here. He was given a green card, and so we just said, well, why not? Let's continue investing in real estate. And I launched my business, and that's when things started to really accelerate professionally.
That's awesome. So, how long did you stay in the agency world, and what was that like? And then, what kind of led to the opportunity with Toucan and the parent company to kind of go in house, if you will, or be part of the branding leader and the visual identity leader of a new brand in the RTD space? What made you decide to how what was it like running an agency, and then why did you decide to move in house, so to speak?
Yeah, it's an interesting transition. I think that there's a great speech from Steve Jobs at a graduation that's about connecting dots. And I think I can clearly see that with my story in a lot of ways. But when I was in college doing my master's, I joined an entrepreneurship club. And one night, I was doing my master's while having a 6 month old and a 4 year old. And one
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. And one night there was this entrepreneurship opportunity to meet potential investors who were alumni. And I said, well, why not? I am exhausted, but I'm gonna go. And in that event, I met a few people. Well, one of the people that I met, his name is Dennis Harris. And so I connected with him. I connected with everyone that I met that night. I followed up, just saying thank you for the time. I was very intentional about making sure that I would, follow up, keep up with people, and really build a network. Building a network was something I have been doing since the start. And he introduced me to his son-in-law. And so once I graduated, I transitioned into owning my agency. I launched the agency, and I'll tell you a little bit about that for a second there. But before I do, the son-in-law from Dennis is the founder at Toucan.
Oh, very cool. So that kind of goes to show that you never know when a relationship, going to networking events, but more importantly, like networking isn't just about going to an event and following up once. It's about how do you, stay in touch and stay top of mind and stay current with that network that you're building.
Yeah, how do you build relationships? How do at that time when I met Dennis, he ended up not investing in my startup, which I think was phenomenal because I wasn't ready for an investor. Um, but there were a lot of introductions that were done, and it was really up to me to build those relationships. And I think a lot of young people don't see the opportunities in that moment because sometimes they're just so focused on an end goal in that time and of their life that they don't fully see the future on and the opportunities that can come from just building the relationship. So transitioning back to my agency, I decided to launch an agency. My background is branding. I love creating brands. But I realized early on quickly that it was going to be really hard to sustain a branding agency at scale, and be able to pay salaries without a constant, strategy around sales. And the reality is people will need a brand today, but they won't need one tomorrow. And I will have to be looking for clients every day to sustain that growth, right? So I transitioned into a hybrid model between branding and digital marketing, where I would build packages that were complete on the side of branding. When I say branding, I mean like your logo, your brand manual, how that resonates on your website, and creating websites that actually convert customers that come in, right? So often I started seeing companies that were perhaps like 30-year-old companies that hadn't really transitioned past the 2006 design on a website, and they really didn't really understand connecting to Google Analytics and how do you track that and making sure that people are converting. But they were investing in advertising because advertising was much more clear into what it gets you. It gets you leads that convert into clients, right? And so I saw a need and an opportunity there to build that foundation in a way stronger sense, and then transitioning them into paid ads. And I partner with a company in Nicaragua, which is where I am originally from, and we started building. We turned it into a franchise. We started growing. We ended up having 20 offices in the US. I became a partner.
Wow.
Yeah, it grew really quickly. We ended up having we launched that in 2021. I became a franchisee in 2021, and I became a partner in the franchise store side at around end of 2021. And then by 2023, we had 200 employees. And so it had grown quite quickly, but there were a lot of gaps that I was identifying. And quite honestly, it was the first business that I started to see grow. And it was the first time I was in business at that capacity. And I just didn't resonate fully with the leadership and my business partners. And I decided at that time, my son was going into middle school, that the level of stress it was having on me and my family was not worth me building whatever we were building. And so I decided that I wanted to sell my equity back, and I did. And once I did, I messaged all of my customers, and one of them was Toucan. And so that's where the
Interesting.
conversation with John continued. And he invited me for lunch, invited me to be a partner, and offered me the position of CMO. And I said yes when the can was not something I had ever seen physically. It was an idea.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Very cool. So yeah, I love that. I love that idea of like, kind of reinventing your business when you find yourself in, this type of a services industry where you kind of do a job for a customer, and when the job is done, that's the end of the scope. But you figured out a way to, help entrepreneurs build and articulate and define what their brand is, and create a digital presence in which they could convert customers, but then figure out a way to add value and continue to sustain that growth above and beyond kind of the launch phase. So I think that's super cool, and really kind of articulates well, in the position that you're doing now with Toucan. So you talked to Dennis. You love this idea of the Toucan ready to drink dilemma. You were excited about the offering that they were going to be bringing to the market. So I think one of the hardest things when you're coming into a category, when you're doing a slight variation, like RTD at one point was a new concept, right? Like people were never pre-mixing spirits and putting them out there into the world. It was kind of like these defined lines of beer, wine, hard alcohol. And, I think like Zima was the first one, right? That kind of took like that wine cooler concept, and Smirnoff Ice maybe, or something like that. But when you're rethinking like product design and packaging, like there's a lot of education that comes with like not only creating awareness, but actually creating awareness of like, what is this and how does it work? So tell me a little bit about how you attacked kind of the storytelling funnel. Like I suppose on one side you're talking about, the brand itself, but then really what the problem is and how you guys are launching new technology to service and under a group of the market that maybe just isn't satisfied with the quality of RTD. So I'd be curious how you attack the marketing there.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say you don't know what you don't know. And when we launched this, we launched it with the idea of, well, we must not be the only ones feeling like the cocktail industry is not there yet. Like the camp cocktail industry is not there yet. And so we leaned on that. We leaned on the fact that it tastes like a real cocktail. We leaned on the fact that the message was more around the flavor. We didn't start fully there because we thought that perhaps the first mountain to cross would be getting across how to mix this. And so one of the big things we do is social listening. I am huge on following videos of people posting about Toucan. We do go viral about twice a month, and it's organic. It is customers
Wow.
into a retail store, grab the product, they make a video, and the video goes viral. And
That's
so, yeah, it's amazing to watch. It's not common for a brand to go viral that often, and I think a big part of it is because the product, when you're making it, people stop and they're like, what is that, right? And so for us, one of the things that I have been leading on the marketing department in our marketing strategy is considering our strategies not the traditional that you see in the alcohol industry. And I think in part it's because I don't come from the alcohol industry, so my perspective is more on the branding and marketing side. um, and I have worked across multiple industries except the alcohol industry until now. And so when I look at our product, I look at it thinking more of the end consumer, because yes, in the alcohol industry in the United States is a three-tier process or system, which means that our customer is really the distributor, right? And the
Mm.
and so when you talk to people in the industry who have been there for years, because it is a legacy industry, they're looking at it in an eyesight on how it traditionally is managed, right? They're looking at it as a distributor being the customer. But the reality is the pool is created from the end consumer. And so I like to see, how do we generate that loyalty? How do we generate that excitement from the end consumer? And yes, definitely consider the distributor and the retailer in that process. But they are going to be just as excited if the end consumer continues asking for a product. And I see over and over again where there's the challenge of, we'll put the product out for other brands. Will put the product out in retail stores, but there's no repurchase. And repurchase is really a signal of life. And so the only way to signal life through the repurchase is if customers are coming back and ordering it. And for us to be able to serve them in the way they want to be served, we need to listen to them. So social listening has been a big part of our strategy.
That's cool. And what kind of insights that were you picking up from the social listening from these videos that were going viral every couple times a month? What were some of the insights that you were able to garner from customers that were able to then repackage for conversations with distributors and retailers, and or how did that continue to iterate your marketing strategy?
Yeah, so I'll tell you three. Number one is, early on, I added on our website a section that says, if we are not in your location, leave your information here and we'll let you know when we launch in your area. And so that allows us to signal back to retailers, hey, we weren't in North Carolina, but now we're opening North Carolina. Here are the people who have asked for a product. There are people asking, right? I also added a map that created a heat map that allows me to see where the searches are happening. And so that's ways in which the consumer is communicating back to us, that we can take it and translate that data into actionable items that allows us to scale and grow on the sales side, right? But even more simpler, our can has changed not drastically, but in a few things. Early on, I saw videos of consumers saying that on the back, now we have visually how to shake it.
Oh,
Before,
nice. So it's kind of like how to.
yes, it's the how to. And before, it used to say mix, shake, partake, and there was a QR code where you can watch a video on how to shake it. The QR code is scanned, but it's not scanned. It's not a lot of scans. And I could see in videos people saying mix, shake, partake, and then they would question how to do it, right? And so that made me think, because remember, I'm looking at the videos from a marketing sense and a branding sense, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to signal better how to mix this. The other thing that I saw was on shelf, we made an interesting choice of making our cans black, which I absolutely love because the RTD category is full of color. And so we stand out in the category, but there are a few things that we have improved on. Color differentiates flavor. And so we added the circle in the back of the bird to make it more obvious the color that it goes with, as well as making the Cosmo or the flavor name the color of behind the bird. And so before, this used to be white and there was no color behind the bird. So it's small little things like that that allows us to build a little bit more of a brand recognition long term, but it is really making those intentional choices based on how we see consumers interact with our product.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, talking about the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 space, I was interim CMO of a RTD wine company that's grown really fast here in San Diego. Learned a little bit about the tier distribution platforms, and then also like finding market fit. So where we found really great market fit was in RTD restaurants that had a beer and wine license that normally had a huge beer selection, but no wine because, like you talked about, bottles are clunky, pulling corks. If you pull a cork on a wine bottle and don't pour the whole bottle within 48 hours, it goes bad. So there's a lot of utility in having RTD or RTD style alcohol beverages in certain categories where you just want to be able to move people through the line quickly. I'm wondering, from kind of that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 distribution model, did you guys find adoption in certain types of accounts or retailers that maybe surprised you originally that you didn't expect when you first came out of the gate?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that we're surprised. I think we're still in a phase because we're a startup, right? We're not launching a new flavor, so we're not surprised in the sense of, oh, people like the pineapple margarita. No, we're surprised in the sense that the adoption and the usability of the product has been surprising in different spaces. Let me give you an example. Country clubs. We have had a great success with country clubs, and it's not that it doesn't surprise us. It makes sense when you look at it, when you think about it. But
yeah, you can take them out, put them on the golf cart, and then it's like an easy thing when you're out on the golf club.
Yeah. And so when you think about it, it makes absolute sense. But as we started to launch golf courses and we started to listening to the people who were not only consuming them, but also selling it, we started hearing things that allows us to build even more on the sales proposition of the product, right? So we built this model as like, well, you don't mix the alcohol with the sugars. We know that's a chemical reaction that happens. But as we started meeting with golf courses, it now turns out, well, first off, this is controlled. It's a double pour. So you know how much you're serving. You have the amount of mixer that you need. So it's less waste, right? Because you're not opening a mixer. One person orders the margarita, one person orders the Cosmo, and that mixer is going to be useless in 2 days or in 1 day or whatever.
You don't need a bartender to figure out portions and kind of you don't need special training or special skills to pour a Toucan cocktail.
Yep. And then it'll be consistently the same flavor because it's already measured, right? And so I would say that more than surprise, we started identifying new pathways and opportunities on the value proposition of the product that we're launching and the opportunity of our product sitting in different locations and what that means when we place the product there.
Did you find any adoption within the distributor community is also very diverse as well. So there are some that focus on convenience. There are some that focus on beer and wine. Then you have your massive distributors. Did you find that you were resonating with certain types of distributors that kind of were maybe non-traditional and saw an opportunity to carry the product as a differentiator?
I would say that we have phenomenal distributors in all the states we're in. A big part of that is my business partner, Jody, who is our president. He handles distribution and he's been in the industry for 30 years. So he knows who is who, right?
So it's relationships, going back to the network effect.
It's been 100% relationship, product value proposition, and Jody being an incredible just driver of all of this. So I would say, though, that even within that, the best markets that we've been in is the markets that see the value proposition and are able to sell our product, understanding all those different value options that we're bringing in, right? So when we position our product the way we recommend, the product moves. And having the right partners allows us to position the product the way we recommend. When I say the way we recommend, I mean having it in the cold box, having it in the shelves, making sure that the messaging is there. We have how-to videos. If the videos are playing in the retail location or in the off-premise, then that makes a big difference to the product moving. We do demos. So all of that cannot be possible if you don't have the right partners in distribution. And I think that has been a big part for us because we have had the right partners to adopt our strategy.
Yeah, I love that. I think you mentioned kind of the the assembly or the usage of the product is somewhat visually appealing and interesting for social. Is that something that you guys are leaning into where, you're maybe seeding it to creators or influencers, somebody who can kind of take that virality component that you guys have gotten from a few videos kind of taking off because there's an interesting visual of like, okay, somebody's never seen this before. It's not just crack open and drink. That's not very fun to watch, but people watch how-to tutorial videos, how to make cocktails, how to make drinks, menu hacks, things like that, because they're visually interesting and it's showing you how to do something. So I wonder how you've leaned into that for your social marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a challenge of the fact that we are a startup, so our budget is startup budget. And even though when you see us online, I think we've done a great job at building a brand that does not give you a startup feeling. And so that's been a challenge with influencers because we're not actively looking for influencers because our budget does not allow for, influencers are expensive. We have
Yeah.
been very blessed with influencers finding our product in the market, posting about it, and then tagging us. But it hasn't been an influencer relationship or collaboration strategy that we've launched, just because at the end of the day, that has been phenomenal for our organic growth. But creating KPIs around that is a little bit harder when our budget is limited and we need to have KPIs around every effort we put into the market, right? So I would say that's been more of a blessing into having the product and getting influencers and normal people find the product and post their videos. And when I say viral, because I do get this question a lot, what do you mean by viral? I would say on average anywhere between 15,000 to 30,000 views, but we've had videos that have more than 1 million views. And
Wow.
it's phenomenal. But a big part of it is to, like, okay, once that happens, to your point, our team, our marketing team will go in and will reply to almost every comment, and we will reshare when people post us. And that part of it is something I don't traditionally see companies doing because it's a lot of work. But for us, it's important for people to know that we're listening, and we love when people comment like what they liked, what they didn't like. What we do want to lean into is we communicate the value. It's clear. But what I see a challenge in understanding is we're creating the base of your classic cocktail and we want you to personalize it. So if you see an espresso martini, we're creating the base, which means it's going to be more heavy on the coffee. Make sure you add some creamer if you like creamer and then shake it, because this is a shaker, right? So without forgetting that it's a shaker, you can personalize any way that you want.
That's cool. Yeah, I love the customization aspect. And the other component is, you're using high proof, authentic spirits like 102 proof Kentucky straight bourbon, additive free tequila reposado, paired with real fruit juices and cane sugar. How much are you leaning into like the premium spirits aspect? You're not just using like standard, kind of base ingredients, and then you're also talking about kind of the additive free natural fruit juices and cane sugar. How much are you leaning into kind of that organic feel, for a lack of a better word? It seems like that could be important to certain consumers that just want something that's very like real food instead of like beverages or preservatives and additives.
Well, I believe that is probably our most important value proposition, because what's out there in the market doesn't have the ability to compare to what we can offer because it doesn't separate the ingredients. And so leaning towards that is a big part for us. And I think mostly because it also alludes to those who enjoy real cocktails. And we've had this when we do demos. I love doing demos. I do it all the time. You can hear what people are really thinking, and that signals back into the messaging we're putting out there. So one of the things I love doing the most is old fashions to men who come through, because one of the things they say is, well, first off, we like to joke that old fashioned drinkers are the pickiest because they always like it the way they make it. But one of the things I like to do is to ask them to taste the top alcohol on the old fashioned, which is going to be a Kentucky straight bourbon, before I pour it into the mixer. And that way they can really try, especially if you like bourbon, you can really taste the quality, the freshness, the softness, really the smoothness of the bourbon. And the same thing for everything else. Maybe not so much the vodka because it's going to, taste like nothing. It's vodka. But definitely leaning to that is going to be important to us. And you will see the difference when you mix it, because there's a big difference between having, a 5% ABV drink that's pre-mixed versus a cocktail at a bar that was just mixed with a top shelf alcohol.
Yeah, it's interesting. This idea of the Toucan delivery system, it kind of lends itself very authentically to partnership. So even though you guys are using your own base spirits, you could easily envision a world where the top can is premium alcohol from a potential partner. You guys manufacture the mixer. and then you can lend off partnership opportunities with other spirits manufacturers and makers, and potentially maybe leverage some of their distribution and maybe bigger marketing budgets. Have you thought about the idea that your delivery mechanism lends itself very easily to making, the top ingredient, the alcohol ingredient, a partnership opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say to that, our idea right now is to launch the brand Toucan Cocktails. Our operating company is Shaken Beverage. I think you will start, and we hope to see applications of our patent in the future with different brands. And perhaps it won't be a collaboration with us because we're building a pathway, a specific pathway. But we do think that's going to happen once, we exit and we transitioned into a different phase of business. For now, our purpose is to build the value proposition through our brand Toucan Cocktails, and hopefully we'll see more applications of our technology being used, not only in alcohol, also in other industries. Imagine coffee and creamer, or baking
Mm.
soda and water, or I've even thought about beer and peanuts, right? Because the top can will have a 360 opening. You can be eating peanuts while drinking some beer. So there's definitely a lot of applications across different multiple categories that gets us really excited.
You mentioned kind of adoption in some early accounts like country clubs and golf courses. Has that also kind of steered how you're thinking about marketing? Are you thinking about you know sponsoring charity golf tournaments, or there's a lot of celebrities that have their own charity golf tournaments, and a great way to partner with celebrities and influencers is working with them on something that they're passionate about, maybe something like golf and a charity that might be important to them. Are you kind of taking those early signals that this product is kind of chalk made for the golf course as an opportunity to lean into that vertical and some of the associations and opportunities for charitable partnerships and or lifestyle partnerships or athlete partnerships?
Giving back for us has always been a big part of what us as a core founding team really believe in. So anytime there's an opportunity to take that into consideration, we will. We've already partnered with a few tournaments, specifically here in Dallas, where we're headquartered. I think there's opportunities to evolve that into more of a partnership with influencer. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I do like that idea. But I do think that even further than that, I guess, again, not surprisingly, our product has resonated very well in the country clubs and the golf courses, but also in pools, in hotels, and
Mm.
also in stadiums. Imagine going to a concert or a talk show or a comedy show. These are places where the problem that we are fixing has to be fixed in as well. So it's not just in the country clubs or the golf courses. It's an opportunity to really ideate and grow in a place where consumers are asking for more and better.
Yeah, I love that. Um, one of the things that we've also seen in social is this idea of like a visual asset. You guys have this fresh foam experience when a user actually shakes a toucan cocktail glass with ice. It creates this rich, natural foamy head, especially on the margarita and espresso martini. How does that digital extension of kind of that user experience? We talked a little bit in just kind of the mechanics of it, but it also looks a lot different than something you would expect from the RTD space, from like a visual texture, over like creating more highly polished studio commercials. Is that something that you guys are kind of leaning into? Is this I'm trying to think of like a example, like the Guinness head on a Guinness beer when you pour it is kind of a known thing that consumers look for inside of bars and places like that. Is that something that you guys are leaning into at all?
Yeah, we believe that everyone eats with their eyes first. And so
I
it's
like that.
a position that we do through our photography and video. But we also believe that what we want to do is not compete in a way that makes us look as every other RTD, but instead compete in a way that makes you feel like you have the bar anywhere you go, right? And so the way we do that is by showing you that you can make a cocktail and it'll look like what you get at a bar. And so a big part of that is, the foam, like you said, in the margarita or in the espresso, and tahine ream and little things like that adds to the experience. But it's really just part of one whole package, right?
You guys also launched a corporate gifting channel, being able to successfully put the product in the hands of other companies that are giving out corporate gifts or hosting their own events. Why did you think corporate gifting would be an interesting channel for an early stage premium alcohol brand looking to acquire lifetime customers?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting perspective, but let me ask you something. Father's Day is coming up.
Yep.
A lot of times you'll get a sock or a hat or maybe a drawing, and we took that as an opportunity to say, hey, this is something that we believe dads will enjoy. What if you get a six pack of old fashions and then a home smoker? And same thing internally, not only on corporate gifting, but more so in, think of holidays where they're going to be serving cocktails, but now you need to hire a bartender and a full bar lineup. This will be a solution to that. So not necessarily companies gifting it, which can also work. And we have seen some companies in interest, but also more on holidays and when they're hosting the holiday um, events and parties to
It's
be
like a bar in a box almost.
yeah, and you really, you need someone making them. They don't need to be the most experienced bartender, but you can also move product faster. One of the things I did is I hosted Thanksgiving in my house last year. We were around 60 people. I had one bartender, and then I had all flavors, and everyone gets to choose their own cocktail. And you can't just choose an espresso. You can choose an espresso with Bailey's that makes it more creamy, or you can add some strawberry to the margarita and have a strawberry margarita. It makes it faster. It makes it easier for me to keep control of what's being served and how much to buy. And it also, you can personalize it, so it's really fun, right? So it allows for that to help transition or make parties a little bit easier to host.
Very fun. Want to go back a little bit to your experience running the branding agency. So you're a master of transforming business identity. What's the number one red flag that tells you that it's time to throw out your current packaging and commit to a brand overhaul?
That's a great question, because there's a lot of times where brands have been built for years and they're recognized in the field. And I would say that there's no linear answer to your question. I will say though that if you haven't been in business for too long, and I say less than 10 years, um, maybe it's not so much about redesigning your brand, but making sure there's a cohesive brand alignment, style, brand manual is what I like to call it, that allows for that consistency across anyone who's touching your brand. I'll give you an example. I had one of my best clients. They were with me for about 4 years. They had a legacy brand that had been in the family business for about 30 years. And they came to me because they wanted to clean up the logo. They didn't want to shift it because everyone recognized it. They now had like 5 locations. It was a recognizable brand, but they wanted to create an identity, a system that anyone in the company can touch the brand and understand how to replicate that same resonance, right? Because the challenge there is when you start, you'll have a lot of hands making the brand, but there's really no guidance. So the brand will show up in different ways at different times because different people are touching it. So I would say more than redesigning or giving it a fresh start, it's more about creating a consistent system that shows up no matter who's touching it or creating.
I love it. The as we kind of move into the future of automation and robots and checking into hotels without going to reservation people, the world is moving to this more frictionless user experience. And it seems in some ways, as you think about democratizing high-end mixology through smart packaging, whether that's at a bar, a music festival, an airport, or a sporting stadium. How do you think this, RTD or this convenience of kind of prepackaged or smart packaging will continue to evolve and move in the direction that you guys are looking to push it?
Yeah, I think there's an aspect from AI that won't change, and it's the ones who drink cocktails are humans, and we like cocktails and we enjoy good cocktails. And can we fix the fact that maybe the cocktail doesn't taste as premium? Yeah, with AI, possibly. But that won't fix the fact that I'm not going to take a huge machine that builds my cocktail when I go out on the boat. or if I'm going out of state, right? So I think the closer solution is more around the convenience and the accessibility, and not so much about the automation. I see AI coming in more on the operations side of the alcohol industry and helping optimize all of that versus fixing the end product, which is the cocktail itself.
Do you think the tier 3 distribution system is outdated? Will that ever be disrupted? Will you ever be able to kind of buy direct to consumer directly from the companies, or do you think that model is too ingrained? I mean, it's basically as old as prohibition, right? So I wonder if there will ever be disruptions to that model of distribution in alcohol.
I think the model is a very obsolete traditional model that is seeing a lot of change and will need to adapt. I'm not sure in which ways the adoption is going to come through, but I think there's going to be change. And I think that change is a reflection of the need the industry is for the first time ever going through. And so whether that is a more seamless process, or that is a way in which, because the thing is, and I said this since the start, consumers don't understand the 3-tier process or system. They don't know about it. I didn't know about it until I came into the alcohol industry. But they do know about the user experience they expect when they're purchasing something online or when they're purchasing at a retail location. And so I think a big hit that we're seeing, aside from the fact that there's less drinkers and all of this, is convenience doesn't only show up on the fact that I want to have my cocktail anywhere I want to drink it. It also has to show up in how the process of me purchasing this product happens. And that hasn't really modernized enough. And so I think there's going to be shifts that happen there that allow for that convenience so that we can continue seeing a growth in the industry where, obviously we're seeing a hit right now.
Yeah, it's pretty wild during COVID when you can order a cocktail or a beer to go or with your food, right? It seems like this would have been a great solution for that time frame as well. All right. Well, Tatiana, pleasure being able to spend some time with you today and learn about what you're building. Definitely fascinating, and I'll be excited to continue to follow along. If folks want to continue to stay up to speed with your brand, or maybe figure out a place to buy it and experience the product, where would you like to send folks to learn more?
Yeah, they can go to our website, toucancocktails.com, and there's 2 sections. You can order cocktails online, or you can search for your closest retail location. There's going to be a map. You add your zip code, and it'll tell you where you can go purchase it. Both of those options are great. If you want to know about the progress of the business, LinkedIn is where we share a lot of updates, or our Instagram, and I do share updates from a founding perspective on the growth of the business and what it looks like to be on the trenches building something from scratch.
Amazing. Well, thanks for spending a little bit of time with our audience today and walking us through this awesome company that you're building. So congratulations on all the success, and we'll wish you good luck as we continue to follow along. And for those of you at home, if you're watching the show for the first time, don't forget to give us a follow or a subscribe. If you're listening to the show, an honest review on whatever podcast platform you might be listening on is how we find a larger audience. So don't forget to do that. And if there's somebody out there in the beverage industry, or maybe somebody who just wants to learn from product innovation on the brand or the CPG side, maybe someone in entrepreneurial land who's thinking about hanging up the hat at the agency world and launching their own venture, don't forget to share the show. And with that, I'll wish you a great day. Thanks for coming on.